right, folks, welcome to a filmed version of our Garden in Every Season live tour for July 6th, 2020. We have been thwarted again by poor cell signal, despite tests this morning that made it look like everything was going to be fine. So we are rolling with the punches as we do and moving on. My name is Paige Engelbrechtson, and I am the Nature Center Education Specialist for the Highlands Botanical Foundation, and we are here right now on top of the spillway for Lindenwood Lake at the Highlands Biological Station. We are going to be doing a tour this morning of a new addition to our campus, the North Campus, which is absolutely gorgeous right now and the perfect spot for our tour. So I'm sorry that you guys can't be with me live, but I hope that this tour gives you a sense of what it would have been like, and it certainly brings you to a new part of the campus. I was actually really excited because I just noticed, and I don't think I can zoom in well enough, but up in the trees up here, tucked among the oak leaves, is a teeny tiny little nest. It's a ruby-throated hummingbird female. She's sitting on a little nest made out of lichen and spider webs. And she is probably perched right there, however perilously, over the water, because the pollinator garden at the North Campus is the perfect place for her. Oh, here we go. For those of you who may not be familiar with the biological station, North Campus is what we refer to this area. And in fact, there's a hummingbird right over here in the bee balm. I think they're so small and fast that the phone won't catch them. But they're here. It's another female who must be nesting relatively nearby. And this is all planted on the dam that creates Lindenwood Lake. This has been built in the last few years by the Highlands Biological Foundation as an addition to the station. And all of the plantings that you see here, both around the walkway and eventually up on our living roofs, were done by Sonia Carpenter and Kern's Land Planning, and they are just, it's been a delight to walk through here over the last few months and see what's changing as the plantings have really come into their own. So we are going to spotlight just a few of what you see blooming here. There's certainly more plants than I know or that I could speak knowledgeably of. And we are going to get started with these tall white flowers. You can just see them all lining the dam. In fact, 2 hummingbirds just flew off in their own version of a dogfight. These are absolutely beloved by the bees. I mean, you come out here and sit on the bench and all you hear are the bees buzzing all day long. And in fact, I've got one right here, and you can see how they go in and how they come out of the flowers. They love these. An absolute treat for them. And the name of this plant is actually really cool. Its scientific name is Penstemon digitalis, and both portions of those names tell us something about the plant. The genus Penstemon is 5 stamens, and you can see the 4 dark ones. Hello, friend. Please don't go into the one I'm holding. The 4 stamens up top are fertile, which means they can be pollinated. But the one on the bottom, the translucent white one, that's infertile. And if you were able to look very, very closely, you would see it's actually got hairs on it, which is where part of the common name for this plant comes from. Somebody thought it looked like a bearded tongue sticking out of the flower's mouth, so they call it a beard tongue. You may know it as white beard tongue, but I prefer another common name, which refers to the shape of the flowers, not only in their form, but how they grow. I assume some botanists from the old world across the Atlantic came and saw all of these beautiful, tall towers of flowers and thought of a genus that they have over there, digitalis, which is renowned, perhaps among some, for that toxin, digitalis, which is used to treat congestive heart failure as a medicine, but can also induce congestive heart failure if you eat the plant. And that is known as Foxglove. So one of the most common names for this plant is Foxglove beard tongue. You can just see all the bees coming in and out. I tend to have a slip of a tongue and call it a fox tongue beard glove. but it is the Foxglove beard tongue, and it is just absolutely all over this dam. And so are the pollinators that it is feeding. It is also, as we will see eventually, up on top of the green roofs of our teaching pavilions. One of the neat things about walking through the North Campus has been that there's something changing every part of the season. There's always something of interest happening, growing, changing. And so I'm excited to get to see what it continues to look like as we move forward. One of the boldest, in my opinion, additions right now is this plant, which is colloquially known as bee balm, but that's actually not the best name for it. And if you were to wait long enough, and I were to be still enough, we would see a very different kind of pollinator come through and visit. And the clues as to which pollinator that is are given by the tubular structure of the plant, which is pretty difficult for a bee to reach down with their proboscis or even land on, as well as that bright red color. And I'll give you a hint, bees don't see red. So to them, these flowers wouldn't stand out nearly as much as they do to us. So who would be invested in finding these kinds of flowers? The hummingbirds that I've watched fly around here this morning. They love bee balm, so perhaps it would be better known as bird balm. I grow them all around my cabin because I just love watching them come through every morning. They usually are pretty routine about it too. They'll come through at the same time every morning and afternoon. And bee balm is one name for this plant, but I learned another in researching for this program. It's also known as Oswego tea because the leaves have been used in the past to make teas. And if you're curious about what exactly that tea would taste like, this stem is square. Now, to some of you, that's an immediate giveaway as to which family the bee balm is in. For some of you, you're just sitting there going, wait, how can a plant have a square stem? That makes absolutely no sense. I admit it's a little strange too, but it is a very ready marker of which family plants will belong to. And if you grow it out in your garden and you likewise make tea from it, perhaps sun tea, perhaps in your mint juleps, you will be familiar with this plant, or at least its family. This is in the mint family. So if you ever find a plant and you're wondering what it is, and it seems relatively safe to touch, and it doesn't roll round in your fingers, but is square, it's a mint relative, which is pretty awesome. Also, it's just such a beautiful plant. Oh, and I forgot to mention, another fact that I learned when researching for this tour, the pollen is way up here at the top of the flower. So when the hummingbirds zoom in to drink the nectar, this pats them on the head. And then you can see the female portion of the plant where the pollen needs to be delivered is likewise at the top. So the the hummingbirds will fly up, receive pollen on their foreheads, which some people say you can actually see the yellow spot as they fly away, and then they'll fly to another flower and pollinate it from their foreheads, which is pretty cute. All right. That was in fact a hummingbird. It's a male. I can tell by the red throat that gives the ruby-throated hummingbird his name, but I don't think I can get close enough. Oh, yeah, there he goes. He's trap lining, so he's following the flowers as they go along the water's edge. And they will get in the cutest little dog fights. Well, they'll get mad at each other, and you'll hear them just chirping nonstop as they go. So the North Campus is technically still under construction. We are working to improve it. A few things that need to be taken care of before we can officially open it to the public. But if you'd like to come and have your lunch or see some of these flowers in person, please do. It is well worth it. All right, the next plant that I wanted to showcase for you guys is this one right here. And you may not be familiar with it, but it's often called butterfly weed. Which, I mean, it's absolutely stunning, gorgeous color. If you saw it out in the wild, you would know what it was. But when I was preparing, I noticed these firefly-looking insects on the plant. I started reading into it, trying to figure out what they were, because I also noticed many of the young, the larval forms, are these small red dots on the flowers. Those are what we call the nymphs. Those are the babies, and they'll grow up to be these adults. And you'll notice the adults are fairly brightly colored, all things considered. That black and red coloration would really stand out if you saw this animal against, say, a green leaf. And you may not think that's the best thing, because if you stand out in the natural world, you're likely to be eaten, unless your coloration is a warning sign. Hey, don't mess with me. And usually that coloration in insects means they're poisonous. Don't eat me because I'm going to make you sick. These are poisonous because of the plant that they're feeding on. They are not harmed by the toxins that they take up that the plant produces. But if, say, a bird were to eat them, they'd start vomiting, they'd get sick, and if they ate too many, they could even die. So this is the large milkweed bug, which should give you a clue as to what plant or group that this plant belongs to. Is also famous for another insect that becomes poisonous by feeding on the plant. Butterfly weed is part of the Asclepias genus, which is milkweed. And if you are familiar with milkweed, you may have planted it in the past because you were trying to promote monarchs. Monarch butterflies likewise lay their eggs on the plant, and then the young will hatch, the caterpillars, and they'll start eating the leaves. And as they do, they'll absorb the toxins the plant produces and carry them with them as they become adults. So the adults and the larvae are poisonous, which is why they are likewise so brightly colored. Last year when we were doing a butterfly program out here, we found a handful of monarch caterpillars of different stages, different sizes, which was really exciting because we have a lot of milkweed planted. Butterfly weed is scattered all through here, as well as the beds that we've already passed. We also have some swamp milkweed, I do believe. So fingers crossed that in another month or so we'll start seeing our monarchs as well. We've got bugs, we've got hummingbirds. If you imagine that butterflies also like the butterfly weed and other plants, you would be right on the money. So very much a pollinator garden for pollinators of all kinds. And not just pollinators. I heard that over the weekend, a snapping turtle was observed laying her eggs up here on the dam. I will not reveal the location for fear that any raccoons might be listening, because I saw raccoon footprints in the mud over there, and they will find and dig up eggs to eat if they can. And we're actually going to come off trail now, so please do not do as I do. But I wanted to give you guys an up close and personal look with another group of plants that I had to do a little bit of digging to learn more about, because I saw they were flowering and I didn't recognize them right off the bat. I think they're pretty cute. There are two different plants growing in here, which you may be able to tell because we've got white flowers and we've got purple flowers with very different shapes, which is usually a good clue they're very different plants. But if you look at the leaves, you may be hard put to tell one from the other right away. So the plant with the purple flowers has arrow-shaped leaves, but the bottoms are cupped and rounded. And although it's long and skinny, these ends don't go very far. This purple flower is a marsh plant called Pickerel Weed, and it spreads through rhizomes. So many of the pickerel weed that we're seeing here in this patch could be related to or the same individual. But look at these leaves. They are arrowhead shaped, sure, but they remind me a lot more of the Star Trek logo with the very long tail ends that are pointed. This belongs to the plant. Oh, there's a cabbage white, I believe. I'm still learning my butterflies, but and bees, speaking of, because there's one over here pollinating the pickerel weed. You can see flying around those flowers. That white flower that the butterfly has landed on is associated with these Star Trek leaves. And this is known as arrow leaf, although I think you could call pickerel weed that just as easily. But it also has another name that's absolutely delightful to me, because if you were to follow this plant down, you would find underneath tubers that look vaguely like potatoes. And if we were to wait and our resident mallards were to make their way over here, we might see them actually digging up and eating those tubers, which are shaped kind of like potatoes. So somebody at some point in time called them duck potatoes, which is just an absolutely amazing common name that tickles my fancy and hopefully brings you a laugh as well. And ducks will not only eat the tubers of the duck potato, they'll actually eat the seeds of the pickerel weed. So these plants here, in addition to feeding, aquatic invertebrates that come along and munch on them as they decay or are just growing, they're also good food for the other kinds of wildlife that we have in our area. Oh my gosh, there is the tiniest little frog down here. I don't think I'm going to be able to... Okay, he's bouncing way too much for me to try and zoom in on him, I think. He's also very darkly colored. But he is like the size of my fingernail. He's just in front of my finger here. And Hi, bye. He went. I don't think it's an American toad. It seems to be pretty late in the season for that, but I might be an American toad or a spring peeper or another frog that I haven't thought of yet. What I want to point out down here is, do you see those indentations in the mud? They're pretty regular at pretty regular intervals, which tells me it's probably not just happenstance or a frog getting stuck in the mud. Probably something that was making those tracks. So we're gonna go see them a little bit better. And again, we're still closed for construction, so please don't come back here. I'm using my staff privileges to do that. But I wanted to point out really quickly this shrub. I've seen it used in ornamentals around houses, and it has, to me, a very strong sweet scent. Apparently other people don't think it's as sweet. Maybe there's probably different varieties than I am. But I got a big fat bumblebee flying around here. Off they go. This shrub is known as Virginia Sweetspire. And again, to me, it has a fragrant, sweet smell. And in the fall, this foliage will turn red maroon color. So there really will be something of interest here all year round. So again, many kudos to Sonia. Oh, there he is. Hi, friend. Can you see him? Just the biggest bumblebee. Hi. How are you doing? Good luck. I think he's off visiting what I believe are swamp azaleas here. So, although he's visiting another one, not this one. All right, and so the last portion of our garden tour is going to take us over to the teaching pavilion. You can see up on top there are plants growing. There's about 4 inches of dirt on top of the roof, and it's providing plenty of spaces for the coreopsis to grow. That's that yellow flower. as well as that tall white flower, which we met earlier in our tour, the Foxglove beard tongue. It's also a living roof because inside the teaching pavilion, there's a phoebe nesting too, and she'll get a little upset with me if I head in there. But I did want to point out, down here in the mud, you can see raccoon prints. So the mud is fantastic for letting us know what's been crawling around here or walking. And perhaps he was looking for those snapping turtle eggs. Dun dun dun. But yeah, if you saw our June yoga tour, it was filmed inside of this living roof, inside the, not the living roof, but inside of the teaching pavilion. This afternoon, we will be posting at 5:30 our July garden program with Yoga Highlands, and that will be filmed at another site on campus, so tune in to figure out which one it is and if you've ever been there before. I'm just listening to the Phoebe who's sitting over there on the railing giving me the what for about coming in. And this is really the conclusion of our garden tour. Hi, hon. I'm just gonna walk by. Don't mind me. It's all good. I know, you have the fattest, fluffiest chicks. They're adorable. I won't bother them. We hope that the North Campus will be open officially for everyone to visit and walk through soon. But yeah, this was the garden tour for July. I'm sorry that the signal didn't work out. I missed the chance to talk with you all and have you all join me. Something very large just jumped into the water over there. Mysteries abound. Other programs we have coming up, really right now, it's just the yoga tour, the yoga program that will be this afternoon at 5:30. And I'll keep my eye out around the garden and see if we have some more seasonal stories that we can tell this month. But I hope that you guys are all doing well, staying healthy, staying safe. And if you have a chance to get outside, please feel free to come to the Botanical Garden. It is open dawn to dusk year round. The Nature Center does remain closed and likely will be closed for the remainder of the summer. But we're happy to get in touch with you however we can. So thank you guys so much. I hope that you have a fantastic day. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them. And if I can't answer them, I promise you I will find somebody who can. We're going to head out of the teaching pavilion now. You can get a shot of the phoebe nest up there on the railing. And out into the sun before it rains, because this is Highlands. All right, everybody, stay safe, take care, and I look forward to hopefully being able to live stream with you all again soon.